Good afternoon, YouTube, and welcome to the Piper Report. I actually did a video on this morning, but I am not a morning person, and the video I did, I sounded really lethargic and really sluggish, and it wasn't that great, so I did not do it. I actually took a little nap, woke up, so now I'm going to complete the video and upload this one, but I did try to do one in the morning, and it was rough. The only times I can report in the morning if I'm up after midnight, essentially. But anyways, here is the article. Trump wants Senate Republicans to change rules to eliminate filibusters. Now, I'm not sure how I feel about this. First off, what is a filibuster, for those who don't know? A filibuster means it was a rule that the Senate has, that the Senate can actually drag out the vote. They can drag out a legislation measure as long as they want in order to stall, for instance. The only way to bypass a filibuster is with a cloture vote. With a cloture vote, all that means is that the people in the Senate want to vote on the measure now. They don't want to debate anymore. To achieve a cloture vote, you need 60 members to vote yes for that. 3/5 of the Congress. It used to be in the past 2/3, but it turned out that after 11 times, a cloture vote failed every time. So it was modified to be 3/5 now. So that is why when you hear people say that Republicans don't have 60 members in Congress, it's hard to get legislation passed, it's because they don't have enough for the cloture vote. And since the Democrats are huge obstructionists, the Republicans cannot actually pass any kind of legislation without it being obstructed. So what Donald Trump wants to do here, he wants the Republicans to eliminate the filibuster. Like I said, I'm not sure how I feel about this. For starters, I was in favor of it being removed for nomination and the confirmation of cabinet members and elected officials. I was in favor of that because that was not originally part of the U.S. Constitution. That was later added in for cabinet members and things of that nature. So by Harry Reid eliminated that, except for the Supreme Court. And then Mitch McConnell and Trump, Harry Reid and Obama eliminated for that, and then Mitch McConnell and Trump eliminated for Supreme Court. So now all members, all elected officials can be confirmed in the Senate by bypassing filibuster. So I do agree with that. However, as a constitutionalist myself, I do question on whether or not we should get rid of the filibuster. The thing is, if you get rid of the filibuster, that means that it will be based on majority rule. And I know that does sound good in some aspects, but at the same time you have to understand, if you ever get a majority rule in Congress that somebody, let's say a hardcore socialist, then that could be really, really burdensome for you. The main issue with all this is that we are a republic. We are not a democracy. We use democracy, but we are an indirect democracy, meaning we're a republic, meaning that our smaller states and our smaller populous areas have equal representation under the law. And our founders knew this. Our founders knew that we cannot let the majority rule. Because we let the majority rule, that could lead to different types of governments that could completely destroy the sovereignty of the U.S. An example is Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany was a democracy. The Nazis end up winning. Yes, I know they won in a type of kind of a furtive manner. They didn't really win the votes outright, but the same thing happened in Sweden earlier in the 70s and 80s. When you have that type of democracy, then whatever political party gets nominated for the presidency, they are in control. The U.S., we have that also as well, but we also have, since we're a republic, we can actually prevent that to some degree. Now, like I said, I don't know what to think about this, because at the same time, too, I understand that in order to actually get legislation through, that means that the Senate has to have a 3/5 majority. So that means that, which is hard to have, which is actually very hard to have. I mean, Obama had it in 2008, 2010. That's why he got Obamacare passed, which he lied to all the people about it, all the American citizens and stuff like that. And then when it didn't work, he kept using executive orders to try to repair it. And I could go on and on about Obama, but I don't want to. So, I mean, I can see the good for this, but I can also see the bad for this. I can see the good in this because then the president, in this case Trump, or whoever it is in the future, can actually work on their agenda without receiving outrageous obstruction from the opposing parties. So, to that regard, that does look good. But at the same time, like I said, maybe in a decade, maybe in 20 years, whatever, you get somebody who owns the whole Congress and owns the presidency who is hardcore left or hardcore right, like fascists, communists, socialists, and any of this stuff. And then that could really, really dictate the future of America. So I think it's kind of catch-22. So I'd have to get back to you exactly what I feel about this, whether I approve this or not. As of right now, I am split both ways. I would like to see it removed, But at the same time, as a constitutionalist, I understand the necessity of it. I understand the necessity and how it is the primacy of being a republic. But here's the article. I kind of ranted a little bit longer than I meant to. President Trump on Tuesday urged Senate Republicans to change the chamber's rules to eliminate legislative filibusters, saying it was the only way to break Democratic obstruction and move the country forward. With only a very small majority, the Republicans in the House and Senate need more victories next year since Dems totally obstruct. No votes, Mr. Trump tweeted. He continued in a second tweet, the Senate must go to a 51-vote majority instead of the current 60 votes. Even parts of full repeal need 60. 8 Dems control Senate. Crazy. The move would dramatically change the deliberate nature of the upper chamber and transform it into a major rule institution resembling the House. Mr. Trump has previously called for an end to the Senate filibuster to help advance his stalled agenda. So, with this, too, the reason why we have 2 chambers of Congress is that the lower house, the lower chamber, the House of Representatives, those rely on the people's needs, whereas the Senate, those relies on the state needs. So that's why the Senate terms are 6 years and the House terms are 2 years. The 2-year terms are essential because they need to talk to their people. So they need to get their legislation passed. They have to get their budget through like that by basing their legislation on what their constituents want. The Senate works a lot slower because the Senate has to fine-tune it. They have to argue it more. They have to make it so it's susceptible for a national distribution. So, it kind of goes both ways on that too. Like I said, the one thing here, I am kind of hit or miss on this. I'm not sure what I think exactly, but what they could do is they could actually change it. Instead of a 60-vote majority for a cloture vote, they could do a 55-vote. Now, I'm not sure what the fraction would that be, but that could work. So there would still be a filibuster then, but the cloture vote would not need 60. It would only need 55, which would allow the majority to still help with their legislation, but at the same time be able to speak with others across the aisle and try to garner some public support and some congressional support to pass that legislation. So they could look into that as well. I'm not sure the fraction of that, so I don't know, but yeah, this could be good. Also, I read it. Now, some of the cons about this too, or to some people pros, is that if we do get rid of the filibuster, the corporate backers of many politicians, the special interest groups, and the lobbyists would have more control in Congress. They have a lot more control in Congress because they could basically buy their own legislation. If Republicans have 52 people, and let's say all the bankers and big businesses want to give them lots of money to pass this type of bill, blah, blah, or remove a certain regulation that would help banks grow, etc., they could do so. And Republicans in Congress would get paid to basically feed their backers, their financial backers. So, like I said, it's kind of a catch-22 to some regard. So I really think that we have to really look at both the pros and the cons of this and go from there. So in a nutshell, like I said, I have to do more thinking on this. I mean, this is good and bad. This has pros and cons toward it, and I think we really have to dissect it. We have to dissect it and make sure that it will be what's best for the Republic of America. Because we don't want to change things. We don't want the ability to transform this country into a communistic utopia. And for those who think it can't happen, yes, it can happen. There already is cultural Marxism happening in the country today. It is prevalent in the country today. Cultural Marxism will grow to economic Marxism. There is a push for Marxism in the country today that we have to be very careful that we do not let that sneak in, that we do not let that ideology convert the U.S. and destroy its sovereignty, the sovereignty that our founders died for, that committed treason for. So it's imperative that we don't change the foundation of America just because we want to pass legislation. So keep that in mind as well. And I'm done.